I wonder why they wasted the postage.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Plaistow's Board of Selectmen meeting for December 14th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:37 p.m. And I must read a disclaimer before we start our agenda. The BOS, in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, is authorized to meet electronically. The board is utilizing the GoToWebinar program of the GoToMeeting platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting and throughout the GoToMeeting program, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to the meeting as well. The link to the meeting is provided on the town website. The public may call in for comment at 603-560-8337, and that's the number at the bottom of the screen. You can watch the meeting on cable TV on channel 17, or you can live stream it at livestream.com/Plaistow. If you'd like to make any comments or ask a question by email, you need to email Beth Hossack at Plaistow.com, and questions and comments that are received by 3 p.m. on Monday will be read at the meeting. So with that, may I have a roll call, please, Beth?
Select Chair.
Here.
Select Vice Chair, Mrs. Stein.
Here.
Select Mr. Keeper.
Here.
Select Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
Select Mr. Glenn.
Here.
And joining us remotely, we have Town Manager, Mr. Pearson, and Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Foley.
All right, thank you so much. Would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Righty. First item on our agenda is approving the meeting minutes for November 30th. So may I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes, please?
Make a motion that we approve the November 30th, 2020 minutes of the Board of Selectmen.
All right, thank you. May I have a second? Okay, Jay, thank you. Is there any discussion on those minutes?
Yes.
Okay,
There was a question about whether there was a motion made in non-public for termination of a contract. I've reviewed the last 3 non-public minutes. There were no motions made whatsoever. So that fact is now that's the answer to the question.
where is it
I
on
just
the
want that
meeting
on the record
minutes?
for this minute, for these
Where-
minutes.
Where is it on the meeting minutes? Can you tell us what page?
I'm looking for it. I saw it when I was at home.
Because this looks like...
Where is it?
Okay, well, that's an opportunity for us. We have not approved those non-public meeting minutes yet, so that may be an opportunity for us to do that when we approve the non-public meeting minutes. Because I don't think it is in here.
Well, I just saw this. I went over home. It's in here somewhere.
Well,
Wouldn't it be in the non-public minutes?
It may be.
Yeah.
So I'm
Oh,
going
it
to...
was discussed in public.
Oh,
I don't see it here, and I don't want to, we're already late on our meeting already, so if you find it later, we can revisit it, but otherwise, I'm going to ask, if there's no further discussion on this, to vote whether you will approve the meeting minutes. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so the motion carries
It's on the
4-0-1.
top of the second page.
Okay, so you want to amend them?
No, I'm just saying, I just make it for the comment. I asked, it says, Jay Kishka asked, when did the board vote to terminate Division's contract? And you said it was done during non-public. Well, I've checked those minutes. They're not
Okay.
there. It's
Do you
not
want to
there.
amend the minutes?
It doesn't need to amend the minutes. I just want it for the record for these minutes.
Okay,
That I
okay.
did check for the answer, and the answer was they were not.
Okay,
These
All
minutes are
righty.
good. That's what happened during that meeting.
okay. All right. All right, so next item on the agenda is public comment. So if anybody wishes to comment, please give us a phone call, or you can maybe jump in online if you wish. And while I'm waiting, or other than that, I'm going to start with our first item agenda, which is the presentation of a House Preservation Award, and this is going to be given out by Mr. Jim Peck from our Plaistow Historical Society. So I'm going to turn that over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it being asked tonight, and also thank you for being our liaison on the Historical Society. I'm here tonight to present the 2020 House Preservation Award. We've been giving these out since 2013. We don't give them every year. We actually gave out 2 in 2013, 2 in 2014, 1 in 2017, and then this is the next one. So the last one we gave out was for the depot, if you recall.
Oh, yes.
For Billy Bartlett. This year, the award goes for a renovation and preservation of a 170-year-old house located at 18 Elm Street. I think the picture's up for everybody to see, right, Dean? Mm-hmm. So you can see the house as it looks today, and it looks remarkable. It looks just exactly like it did back in the day. As I say, it's 170 years old, built in 1850, and we're pretty sure about that because we have some pretty good documentation of it. It's located on 18 Elm Street, just past the annex. I think everybody knows where it is. Mm-hmm. It's got a sign on it that says the Linden Cottage, and that's what it is. And that sign's been there since 1902. We have a diary of the guy who owned it, and it tells us when he put it up. So that's great. The guy who owned it was a guy named Squire William Hills, with an S. He bought 10 acres of land over there, and his land stretched from about Park Avenue between Elm and Main all the way up to what is now Major Lane, which used to be Witch Lane. He owned all that land.
Wow.
And he built his house right there, and he farmed everything, and then he eventually built some other houses there. So he was a pretty well-off guy. He was a selectman a couple years. He laid out the cemetery in 1850 up on Elm Street. He was a botanist, and he planted many trees. He planted linden trees, the Linden Cottage. He planted larch trees. In fact, there are 7 larch trees. These are tall conifers. They're kind of ugly looking, but they're right behind the courthouse. You'll see them if you look there. They're all in a row, and one of them was just named the biggest larch in New Hampshire. And John Hallahan, who lives in the house behind 18 Elm, John is the veteran, and you see him walking around town with a long beard. He may even be on. I'm not sure if he's on. He wanted to be on tonight, but he nominated that larch. So just back to William Hills, he's the guy who planted all those trees there. And I know that when we get to the owners, they want to plant some of those linden trees there as well. So in 2017, that house was a mess. I think everybody in town remembers seeing it there. It was falling down. The roof was gone, it was leaking, and everybody said, that's going to be torn down. Along came 2 people, husband and wife, Liz and Jeremy. Their last name is Hill without an S. It's kind of a coincidence. I wish there was Hills, and it would be a really good coincidence. And they bought it in March of 2019, and they proceeded to fix it up, and they've been working on it for 2 years, and I believe it's done. I know they have to work on the barn. Let me go to my next picture here. Here's a picture of William Hills. He kind of looks like John Sherman, I have to say. Doesn't he? I mean, he
I hope he takes that as a compliment.
was a selectman. No, I think it's more the beard, the goatee than anything. He was the guy who owned it and did all those things that I said. There's the sign that Liz and Jeremy had redone. They had it done by Kelly Graphics did it. And they did it exactly the same. So that's that sign that was put up in 1902. This is the award, and what I'd like to do is just call them up and have a socially distanced award ceremony here. In other words, I'll give them the plaque. We can have some pictures. I don't know if you guys want to
Beth,
pose with them.
do you have your camera
Beth can
with you or
take
your
some
cell phone
pictures.
picture?
I should say, Bob Hobbs is here too. He's the president. He's in the back. He can take some pictures too. He's the
Okay,
president
great.
of the Historical
Great.
Society. So, Liz and Jeremy, come on
Come on
up.
up.
I know you
Yep.
have your 2 kids here. You can bring them too. And we'll hand you the award, which is up there on the board.
Yep. Before you do that, could I just say something?
Sure.
We can change places for a second. Let's be
Go ahead.
Spaced out. The only thing I was thinking of during Jim's presentation is Mr. Hills was involved with the Elm Street Cemetery, as he mentioned. And I'd like to point out to the Hill family that Mr. Hill is buried to the immediate left side of the cemetery as you enter from Elm Street. And it's been noted over the years that from that location, he can keep an eye on Linden Cottage.
There you go. I love that story.
So, good luck. Thank you very much. We appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, why don't you come up? I do have one slide before I forget it here. Anybody see this?
Yes,
movie?
I was just going to say your house is never finished. Yes,
That's exactly.
yes.
No offense, but you guys did a fantastic job. I mean, I saw Liz on a ladder up there every time I went up there. I don't know what Jeremy did though. But Jeremy designed the outside. I think it looks beautiful, and hopefully they'll get the barn done. But come on up and we'll give you the award. I don't know which way I hold this up for the camera, Dean.
Mr. Towards that camera right over there, Jim?
Okay.
Right there.
There.
I'm
Right,
sorry, Beth, you're going to be
congratulations.
running around.
Very good. Smile under the mask.
Yeah, you are smiling. I can tell your eyes are crinkling.
It goes from here to here.
Yep. You guys did a beautiful job with that home. It looks spectacular, and thank you so much for taking care of the buildings in our town. We really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. You have a good night. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
You said everything.
Okay, great.
I love the poster. Can I get a copy of it?
Yes, I have one for you right here. There you go.
Amazing.
Yes. Yes. Truer words were never spoken. You will never stop paying for your house.
That makes it all worthwhile.
We'll have that for you.
Yeah, it'll never be done.
Very well.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
luck with the
all.
All
barn.
right,
Take
thank
care.
you, guys. Good night.
The next endeavor.
Good night.
I was in the house 2 years ago
Were you?
when it was, they used it.
All right. Our next agenda item, Jim, are you going to stay for this also, is a Heritage Commission presentation. This is in regards to a warrant article that we are proposing to create a Heritage Commission, so you can continue on with that if you'd like.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I have a petition, an online petition. I only have one copy. I'm going to hand it to you. It's necessarily an online petition to the selectmen for this warrant. There's 68 names on here, and I'll talk about it in just a second. I'm just going to hand it to you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure you guys helped too. Good job.
So like I said, I mean, we don't, if you guys put it on the ballot, we don't need a petition. If you don't, then we would need a petition.
No, it's
but-
already on the warrant.
Yeah, so, yeah, I know you already do, so, but we wanted to gauge, I think it's important when you're going to vote on something that you have a feel for the people in town, how they feel about things. And the way to do it now with COVID and everything is online. So I just wanted to point out, in that petition, we do have a couple of selectmen, we have 4 members of the planning board, we have 2 members of the ZBA. And I talked to Norm Major today, and he said he definitely supports this 100%. So just to throw some weight behind there and throw a couple names at it. I know you guys have seen a lot of this stuff. I have the package I gave to you. I have extra copies I can hand to you if you don't have them. I'm just going to walk through it. If you don't mind, I can hand them to you. If you already have them, that's fine too.
I already have a copy of mine.
Thank you.
Just so we're on the same page. So like, I think you guys have thought a lot about this, and I don't want to, talk about stuff that you already know, but I do want to make a couple of points. One of them is, this commission, the word commission throws people, because you think it's like they have all these powers to tell people what to do. It's an unfortunate term. It's more like an advisory board. It's like the Conservation Commission in the sense that the Conservation Commission doesn't really have any regulatory powers. People don't know that, but they don't. What they do is they're a group of people, I know John's on the Conservation Commission, that is interested in the town, protecting the water supplies of the town. So what it says in this package is, Heritage Commission is similar to a Conservation Commission. It doesn't have powers like a Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, even a ZBA. It can't tell people what to do. It can't say, we want this window to be, 4 by 8, yellow or whatever. It's not a historic commission. Back in 1992, when the New Hampshire legislature passed this, they had different varieties. They had the Historic Commission, which is more like a Portsmouth or an Exeter, where you're trying to protect and tell people how to build their buildings. We want none of that. What we want, and what I discovered, is the Heritage Commission is exactly what we need. We don't have anything now, and what happened recently, I think you know, the former North Parish Meeting House, which is at 2 Main Street, was almost torn down. And that's an 187-year-old building. It's probably the oldest, or one of the oldest public buildings in town. It became a private building. It was, it was mortgage specialist, as you know. But the guy who bought it was from out of town. He had no sense for the history. So what I was looking for is some group from the town that could approach the owner, not dictate to the owner, but just say, did you realize this was historical? Did you realize the history? Sometimes when you give people a history of a building, they listen to you and they say, well, maybe that'll enhance the value of that building. And you'll be surprised what they want to do. Maybe they would save the building. So we need a resource. We need some resource in town that can act for the town, but not tell people what to do. And like I said, we had a debate on Facebook on this, and some people said, I don't want anybody telling me what to do on my property. Absolutely right. This Heritage Commission, you wouldn't even have to listen to them if you didn't want to. There's no obligation to do what they say or even listen to them. So it's a non-regulatory resource for the town, and we have nothing now. So that's kind of it. If you go to the second page there, it talks about there's 50 Heritage Commissions in New Hampshire. I looked at the list, and the ones near us are Chester, Derry, Wyndham, Exeter, Sandown, and Danville. In fact, I forget which one it is. I think it's either Sandown or Danville. Is Norm Major's son is a selectman there, and he told me all about how it operates. It's very non-intrusive. All the regulations are in here. I know Francine and I went back and forth on the fund, and Francine convinced me, let's start without a fund. Let's not have a fund because, the fund, the money shouldn't come from the town, it should come from donations. Let's see how it goes. Let's have a Heritage Commission, for a year, and if we need a fund, we'll get a fund. So those were I think that's one of the hang-ups you guys had with a fund. Now, the only thing I would add to that is that the Conservation Commission does have a fund, and I think they have quite a bit of money in there. And a Conservation Commission can use that money for conservation land. So at some point, I think it would make sense to have a fund, and if a building like that came up and it made sense and you had people in town that were interested enough to put the bucks in there, you could actually buy the building and donate it to the town. Now, that particular building we're talking about, the old North Parish Meeting House, is really the gateway to Plaistow when you drive up, and I'd hate to, so many people in town would hate to see that torn down. We should at least give it a try to talk to the owner. Again, don't tell them what to do, just suggest things to them. There may be grants. The town hall needs to be protected. I don't think anybody's ever going to buy the town hall, obviously, but The town hall is very historic, and because we've been lucky so far that we haven't lost some of these buildings. Billy Bartlett bought the depot. John Gifford bought the farm over there. We've been lucky, Sweet Hill Farm, but we're not going to dodge a bullet forever. We need some group in town that would act in the interest of historic preservation. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I know there may be some questions on the regulations. Yes, sir.
So,
Go ahead.
so the question I have is in your handout here, it talks about the powers of the historic
Yeah,
commission.
good point. That's in there. They list the powers in
Yeah.
there.
And there's, on the second, or after that heading, on the next page, there's a section that says, perform a study to assess the value in creating a local regulatory historic district and prepare an ordinance for it. So my questions, Jim, is help me understand what that means, and also, where does the planning board step in to provide some type of ordinance to secure these buildings? And I'll give you a little example. If you go to Quebec City, in the old city, there is a regulation that says you can buy a building and you can get it, but you cannot change the outside of the building. And that applies to all of the little shops and restaurants that are in the old town. So that would be an example, I would assume, that their planning board put in place to hold on to the history of old Quebec. Would the planning board do something like that, that would basically stop somebody from tearing down a historic building? And if not, is this historic regulatory district required to stop that from happening?
Well, looking at that particular power, that says that you have that power. It doesn't mean you're going to exercise it. It means that the Heritage Commission, once formed, could perform a study. They have the power to assess the value, and there would be a debate, and the selectmen would be involved, and the planning board. Do we want to go to the next level? And I've already said I wouldn't support that at this point in time. That next level is too much interference, in my mind, with the individual landowner. In other words, the Historic Commission is more designated part of town, and you can only do such and these things in that part of town. Heritage Commission is the whole town. It doesn't say what you can or can't do at all. So if they did perform a study, that would have to be vetted. And the bottom line is you'd have to have another warrant before you had a Historic Commission. You can't just move to a Historic Commission. It has to be on the ballot. And that would fail miserably, I think, in this town, at this point in town. What was the other part of your question I was going to answer?
Well, it had to do whether or not the planning board.
Yeah, the planning board.
Would consider an ordinance that would basically
Right.
retain some type of either, I mean, it doesn't have to be prohibiting them from tearing it
Yeah.
down, but maybe just to be able to meet with the Historic Commission before they
Right.
would tear it down or something.
Well,
Is
right
that
now-
something the planning board would do or would put forth?
The important thing is to keep in mind is the Heritage Commission is non-regulatory. By adding a Heritage Commission, you're not adding any regulations like you just referred to. To get those additional ordinances or site plan regulations, the planning board would have to put them on the ballot, not put them on the ballot, put the zoning would have to go on the ballot. Site plan could be done by the planning board, but you would have to have a majority of the planning board to vote for those site plan regulations, and you would have input from the Board of Selectmen, you'd have input from the ZBA, you'd have input from the planning department, from the town manager, and I almost guarantee you they wouldn't do those kinds of things. The things that I think need to be done are simply put the Heritage Commission in a position to have a conversation with the owner, or try to. I should say try to, because when I said that they were required online, people said, I don't want it to be required. It's not even required. So what they do is they're notified by the planning board, we're going to be ruling on a particular property. It's in the category, it fits into the inventory. What do you think? Just like they do with the Conservation Commission. They ask the Conservation Commission reviews it. They may ask the owner in, the owner's not obligated to come in, and then the Conservation Commission writes an opinion back to the planning board as an advisor to the planning board or the ZBA and says, this is what we think. And I know for certain the Conservation Commission sometimes is not followed. They may say, for example, the property, I think it's 88 Plaistow Road, they said, we don't want them going in the wetlands there. ZBA overlooked that, got the letter from Concom, and went ahead and approved it. So what I'm saying is the overriding laws of the state don't change. The site plan regulations don't change. The subdivision regulations don't change. And the zoning don't change unless we change them. So you don't have to worry that you got a Heritage Commission, suddenly they get all these Superman powers. They don't. They just have the power to advise. You see a lot of the powers at the top of that page says advise the planning board as requested. Now, if the planning board doesn't request it, they don't advise them. Advise other boards like the Board of Selectmen. If they don't ask, they don't advise. So I don't know if that answered your question.
You did, thank you, Jim. I
Did you have a
appreciate that.
question, Julian?
Yes, I did. What you just talked about was not my concern, because I understand how that works between the Planning Commission, the ZBA, Conservation Commission. And I'm going to read something from your handout that is published from the newhampshire.gov. And it says, while their primary duties are to advise and assist other local boards and commissions, including the planning board, which I so far agree, and I don't have a problem with that, heritage commissions are also empowered to accept and expend funds for a non-lapsing heritage fund. And the big thing here is to acquire and manage property and property rights, which means you can, if someone donates some money to this, you can go out and buy a piece of property. Who then has to maintain and own, and who pays taxes on that property? Who owns the property after that?
I don't think that would happen if you don't have a fund. I mean, if, you know, they have the power to accept money, but there's nowhere to put it. All you have is the general fund, and that's controlled by the selectmen. So there is no fund. You can't really do what that says. I don't think. I may be wrong, but I don't think that they would have the power to accept money if they have no fund. I mean, who would want to give money to the town with, you know, it wouldn't specifically be for the Heritage Commission?
Well, that's my biggest concern.
I'm not certain about that, but that's my
My
interpretation.
biggest concern is it says it's empowered to accept and expend funds, and then goes on to say acquire and manage property. When we acquire and manage property, that costs money.
I don't
Also, the question is, when you acquire that property, does it become a nonprofit type status, or it belongs to the town, and now it is off the tax rolls, which then also financially affects the town as a
From
whole?
discussing that very point with some
Yeah.
of the other Heritage Commissions, the Heritage Commission doesn't do that without the approval of the Board of Selectmen. I haven't found any that would allow a Heritage Commission to buy property and then manage it. I know it sounds like that. I think it's giving you that power, but in practicality, the Board of Selectmen has a large input into that. And, you know, personally, if I was on a Heritage Commission, I don't think you should buy any property without the Selectmen. I mean, can the Concom buy property without talking to the Selectmen? I don't think so, John.
Well, I understand that you personally wouldn't do that, because I know you.
Yeah,
But this, once you start something and you give it that power,
yeah.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, whoever happens to be running this commission, which us two may not be around by that time,
Right.
or any of us here, well, except for Jay maybe.
Yeah.
But
Jay's
this now
going
gives the
nowhere.
power in the future, for someone to do something we never intended. That's my
I hear you.
concern.
The other check and balance here is that this is an appointed position. It's appointed by the Board of Selectmen. And, you know, and one of the selectmen sits on the board. So one of the selectmen would have a lot to say. Who knows, you know, down the road, Julian, maybe people have a different attitude down the road, and they're okay with that. But, you know, I don't think it would happen. It has never happened with the Conservation Commission, I know.
Yeah, why I'm so concerned about it. Large cities like Portsmouth or whatever, if a piece of property is bought, whatever, and it's off the tax roll, it's not a big deal. But in our section, every piece of property and home does have an impact on area because we don't have those numbers. We don't have the same number of residents or the same amount of buildable property, you might say. It's like the town forest. Town forest is great,
Just
but
one
now
other
they'll be
point.
town forest forever.
Can I help? Because I have a line that you
Sure.
might want to be aware of. It says, property the commission may acquire in the name of the town or city, subject to the approval of the local governing body.
Right, that's what I thought.
Okay,
So basically, they can't just go off and decide.
It's actually
to
in the
purchase it.
RSA.
all right. Are you all set?
Yes.
Okay, so I think Jay did have a question first, and then I'll get to you, Greg.
Just a couple questions, and I'll start out. I'm in favor of this. I think we should do something to at least inventory what we have in town and have that conversation. Is this being recommended by the planning board and zoning boards as well?
Pardon me?
Or is this commission, are they in favor of having this commission, the planning board and the zoning board?
I have 5 signatures on this particular online petition. Francine's
Yeah,
not on there
here.
because I didn't ask any selectmen. There's 5 members of the planning board. Three of them have signed it, including myself, Karen Robinson and Lori Millette,
Yeah.
and Tom Alberti, who's a alternate.
Okay.
I didn't ask Jeff Adams. On the ZBA, I have 2 signatures. Two of them, Peter Belo and Jim Unger, frankly, have some issues. There was very good debate, and very good, I think there was some misunderstanding on their part. When I worded the online petition, I screwed up. I said you had to talk to the commission, and so I corrected it. Since the petition was already online, I had to put it in an update. I couldn't change the petition. So then I convinced John Gifford to sign it, and I think Peter Belo, once he understands that, he would sign it. So
Yeah.
Gary Ingham signed it and John Gifford signed it. And I know I didn't ask the 5th guy, Lloyd, I think his name is. So 2 out of 5. 2 are sort of debating it, but it's a good, healthy discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're talking about is we have nothing. We're going to go to one step, like Francine said.
Right.
Don't have a fund, just have a heritage. Don't go to the Historic Commission. I don't think we'll ever get there. That's Portsmouth, that's Exeter.
Right. And then the last question I had was, it's around in there, it talks about surveying and inventorying everything. So is that something that you would leverage the Historical Society for some of that information?
Francine
Yeah, that's-
asked me,
yeah.
how many of these do we have? And the tax cards of the town, believe it or not, at some point, they were putting the year the house was built. Now, I do a lot of research, and I use those tax cards. They're fairly reliable. If you go by those, my suggestion is any property that was built before 1900, that's roughly 100 properties. There's about 30 properties built in the 1700s in town. This is out of 3,500 properties. And there's another 70 that were built before 1900, so you have about 100. So when people are concerned about their own property, we're not talking about every property. We're only talking about.
Right.
But in terms of a survey, that's just the start. It could be wrong. I mean, I've been out and looked at deeds before, and they're incorrect.
And where I was going with that was, to survey it, it might cost the commission some expense to do that. So if there were some expense associated with that, would that come from like the planning board? Would you be like a subcommittee under the planning board, or would you
don't think-
require your own?
No, as a commission, just like the
Budget.
Conservation Commission, the Board of Selectmen could decide to give them some funds. Now, I think the Conservation Commission gets a very small amount.
Right.
And they use it for the trails, and you may know better than I do. It's not a big number, big bucks. In terms of the, yes, you would, the answer to your question, back to what you said, definitely leverage the Historical Society. You know, I was thinking the Historical Society could handle this. You know, you had suggested, why don't we just use, existing? And then I thought to myself, well, we really need the town behind it. The Historical Society, people don't understand this, it's not a part of the town. It's a separate group of people. But yes, we do have people there, myself, Mark Foynes, Bob Hobbs, he's still here, he's gone. who can do research, and you can leverage, I don't think you could have to spend a dime to do that survey.
But even if you needed it, it's
You
probably
might
not a
run
lot.
into it, but the Historical Society probably would put money up to do that. So you're not talking like bankrupting the town here.
Right.
You know, but I think that survey would also go a long way to understanding where are these properties. A lot of these properties are right in the village. They're right back here on Elm Street, on Main Street, but some are out there, you know. I mean, right in the middle of the town, you got the town hall, you got the Baptist church, you got the Pollard School. I mean, you know, we need to protect these places.
Greg, did you have another question at all, or?
Just trying to
No,
add
that's it.
something that,
Okay.
that Julian and
All
Jim were
right.
talking about.
Are you all set, Jay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. I just have one question is with regards to appointments. Is there any criteria that you can point the board to as far as appointing some of these people to represent the commission?
Yes. I would say you want to, it's just like the Conservation Commission. You have to find somebody who has the love for what they're doing, for the history of the town, or like John or the other people on the Conservation Commission, Olaf Westphalen, and who's the other guy there, whatever. They all want to protect the water in town. So we were just looking for those kinds of people. But the other quality, I think, is somebody who doesn't want to invade the property owner's rights. Not somebody who doesn't, you know, understand that the property owner, at the end of the day, should be making that decision. And that's my opinion.
Okay.
You know, somebody like a John Gifford would be perfect.
Okay.
Somebody like a Brian Stack would be perfect.
All right.
There's a lot of people in this town who have a love for the history of the town. Karen Robinson. I might be interested.
All right.
Some point.
John, did you have any comments or questions that you wanted to ask? Are you
Well,
good?
yeah, Jim, would the board have regular scheduled meetings?
Yes, they would, just like, you know, that's one of the powers to hold meetings and hearings. If you wanted to have hearings, they have that power. So just like the, you know, just like the Conservation Commission, they'd probably meet once a month. To get organized, they would start off with, you know, what are we going to do? We're going to do probably the first thing is the inventory. What are we talking about? And then prepare the inventory, come back to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is the inventory, what do you think? These are the properties that we want to put on this list. You know, you could even get to the point where you go to the homeowner and say, do you want to be on the list? And maybe they have the option to opt off the list, I don't know. I mean, but properties get sold, so maybe you don't want to do that. But yeah, they would meet probably once a month.
And you said you would accept donations and things like that.
Well,
So-
I've heard people in town say to me recently, when that building was going to be torn down, there were some people who stepped up and said they would donate money to save it. You know, they say that, you know.
Yeah.
I know some people were sincere, and there are people in this town that have a love for the history of the town. There are people that have already done things for the town, like Billy Bartlett, and I'm not saying he would, but I'm saying that kind of person who might donate. I would donate some money to, you know, put in a pool at some point. But that's not going to happen. I think Francine was dead on. We would do this for a year, see how it goes, see what happens, you know. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll say this isn't working. I don't know. I'm looking for something. We have nothing now. I don't know how we would say that. Right now, that building can still be torn down. Nobody's had a conversation with that owner about it. You know, the ZBA, you know, shot him down a couple of times, not based upon the Heritage Commission, but based upon regulations that are in place. So those regulations would still be the overriding consideration.
And I just wanted to point out, too, before I close this portion of our agenda, the town does have a donation policy, and donors can specify what they wish that money to be used for.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be a great way around the issue of, quote, creating a fund at this point until you guys establish a charter.
Still could do that.
Yes, and you, until you establish a charter with your rules and regulations, et cetera. So, I mean, there is a way around
What
that.
happened with Old Home Day, for example, is that we didn't have one, and now
Right.
we have one.
right. And now we don't have Old Home Day. Oh, my God, you know, COVID does its thing. So anyway, if not, the board has no more questions. Thank you for your presentation, Jim. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to give you back this, your signatures. 'Cause I
Go
don't
read
think
this,
you're gonna need that. We do have a warrant for it. So thank you again for both presentations. We appreciate you coming in.
Have one,
Have a
That's
good
my
night.
last question.
Thanks,
Jim,
Oh, sorry.
Have you read the warrant?
What's that?
Have you read the warrant, the proposed warrant?
Francis and I talked about it, she
Yeah.
took out the fund.
Okay.
I think there's one of the 44 or something has to be taken out because that refers to the fund.
Can you
I
send
think
me
that's
an
the
email so
only
I
44D.
can make an edit to that? Do you-
Yeah, it's a
did you get
44D.
a copy of it, Jim? Did
Pardon
you
me?
get the copy of the warrant?
Of your warrant, I don't.
Okay, I'll forward the copy to you. If there's some changes that need to be made, I would,
The only change, I think, is 44B has to be removed. I think it's B.
D? Okay, I thought it
D.
was D. All right,
That's the one that refers to the fund,
okay,
because you already took the fund out.
okay.
okay, good, thank you, I appreciate
All right.
that.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Jim.
you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, next item on our agenda is Energy Aggregation Committee established. And just very quickly, our Energy Committee had a meeting last week, and they were very gracious enough to offer to head up the Energy Aggregation Committee. And this is basically, they are empowered with preparing or helping the Board of Selectmen to prepare an electric aggregation plan, which would have the details about how Plaistow would provide electric aggregation to their residents. And this is an opportunity for not just businesses and municipalities, but also our residents to be able to take advantage of some savings on their utility bills. So I know Greg and Julian were very much involved in it. If either one of you want to make a quick comment about it.
Do we need a motion for that?
No, actually, this is on a warrant.
No, do we need a motion to name the Energy Commission?
Oh, to approve it, yeah, you're probably
name-
right, we should
to
probably
name
do
the
that.
commission?
Yeah, what do you think, Julian, yes?
Well, that would be part of the plan, which doesn't have to be submitted yet.
No, I'm
The
just
the
saying.
warrant just allows you to create a commission.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I think we need to have a motion so that we can name the Energy Commission as the Power Aggregation Committee.
Yeah, just to finalize it, just to make sure.
At this time, because it's not in stone until the actual charter is sent to the state.
Right.
Right,
That's
but if
fine.
you want to put that motion
So
on
I'll
the
make a
floor.
motion that we accept Tim Moore's offer to have the Energy Commission act as the Power Aggregation Committee and work to produce a power aggregation plan for the town.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, that's fine. Can I have
I'll
a
second it.
second on that? Okay. So is there any further discussion? I know that we're going to have some information coming out on the town website regarding that before voting, so people will have a sort of a sense of idea of what it's about and how they can go about getting on board or opting out if they choose to do that too. So there will be some education coming forth on the town websites for that. So if anybody, no one else has questions or comments? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, that motion carries 5-0-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss unanticipated costs at Park. And I can't see either Mark or Greg on their screen, but hopefully one of you is there. And Mark, would you be able to speak to that, please, for us, if you're there?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Included in your package tonight is a memo from Dee Voss and myself giving a history and a recommendation and a draft motion for $7,800. If you remember, I briefed the board when the park project started and told you that on day one, they ran into discovering that the septic system was directly where the equipment and the roadway needed to be put in alongside the pavilion from the parking lot between the pavilion and the concession building. And so on day one, we ran into it and had to overcome that, and the cost was $7,800. We had to replace some broken plastic pipes that were there and not supposed to be there with some cast iron pipes and relocate the vent. And we had to install some bollards to protect the vent and the pavilion building. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's just unfortunate. That was unforeseen and unanticipated because there was not a set of plans that when we were drawing up the engineering for this, that we knew that the septic system was exactly where the roadway was to enter into the field area.
Okay. Board, do you have any questions for Mark? Go ahead, Julian.
Yes, I understand how this happened. I know this all was constructed before your time. And I'd propose that any future town projects, even though they don't have to follow planning board guidelines or get approval,
Yeah.
that any town buildings, any town improvements should at least go forward and have a plan, a documented plan, even though it doesn't have to be approved, so that things like this don't happen in the future.
Yes,
This is not the first time we've run into things that were undocumented.
And
I
I
know
have one-
the town doesn't have a legal requirement to go through the planning board, but some plans or documents should still be produced every time something is constructed.
Yeah, and as a planning board member, I 100% agree with you, and I think that Mark has already made inroads into that by putting everything before the planning board, including our Public Works Garage and a number of other things. So I think that precedent has already been established, and it's an excellent idea.
I'd
I
like to make a
support it
motion to
100%.
make it a policy, for all future town managers, et cetera, that we at least provide a plan or whatever and document it somewhere of any kind of town project, so it doesn't happen in the future when we are not here anymore, when
Okay.
Mark is retired, whatever. I know Mark's ethic wouldn't allow him to do nothing without a plan, because that's the way he is. But we don't know what happens in the future, and we don't want to have we don't want to cripple a future board with problems like, of this nature in the future.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just making that
you got a
motion.
smaller, you got to cut that
The motion is that
motion.
all town projects should be documented, their construction projects should be documented, even though they don't have to be approved.
So would that be in town ordinance? What I'm concerned about is that we pass this as a motion and it gets lost, and we totally forget about it in a year. So should this be documented
It could
as
be.
a town ordinance?
It could be a way to put it in black and white, put it as a town, because we create the town ordinances.
Could you write something up and then we can vote it in on the 21st?
Yeah, would that-
I'd like to
be a
get a
little bit-
suggestion from the planning board, so it's written
Yeah.
probably,
That's
maybe
fine.
from John Cashel.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Could you do that
Because he
for us?
understands how this stuff works.
Okay,
Right.
So that in the future, this doesn't happen.
And that way it would be a long-term. It'll be right on the website.
It will
It'll
stay
be
on there, and it'll be long-term. And one thing is, don't wait for the next problem to happen. Nip it in the bud and say, this is not going to happen again.
Exactly.
So you'll draft something for the planning board, and I know they're
I'd
not
like to get something from
meeting.
John Cashel. I'm not a planning
Excuse-
board expert.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying, could you write something up for Mr. Cashel? And I just wanted to alert you that the planning board is not meeting on the 16th.
Well,
So the
it's
next
not- it's
meeting,
not a-
excuse me, please don't interrupt. The next meeting is going to be in January. So you have plenty of time to put that forward, and we can review it then. That's not an issue.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion that the Busby Construction invoice of $7,800 for the repairs to the septic system and installation of protective bollards at Park be charged to the contingency fund for an unanticipated expense.
Okay, may I have a second on that
I
motion
put a motion on the
first?
floor, and it has not been acted upon.
It was never seconded.
It was not seconded, so there's no,
Well, you
there's
never
not
asked
a
for a
motion.
second. Did you ever ask for a second?
No,
Because you decided not to ask for a second.
no.
right.
Can we take a
Then I will
second
leave
on this
this-
one first, and then we can revisit it, Julian, okay? Could I have a second on this motion, please?
Second?
Okay, thank you, Jay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that motion carries 500. Okay, now let's get back to your motion. We never had a formal motion. I think what we had was a discussion that we were going to check with John Cashel first, and then remotion.
I started by saying I'm motioning.
Right, and I think it was effectively tabled. We basically tabled it to further action or
Right.
research. We weren't formal, I agree, we were not formal, but basically, you put it on the floor, we started discussing it, and then we basically said, maybe it would be a good idea to have the planning board and John Cashel involved with this, and that you would agree to go off and write this up and make this part of the town ordinance so that it would continue on and be aware versus just a motion that we would approve on the floor tonight. I don't think we were trying to ignore what you were trying to put forth. I think we were trying to be helpful and basically make sure that what you are proposing is long-term and that it does stay within the town.
Right, and it just doesn't get lost as a motion somewhere. It needs to have some teeth to it. And I think we need to make sure that we do a little bit more investigation with that and do it formally, and we have plenty of time to do that. It's not that we are not going to do it. I think we need to do it properly.
I made a motion to create a policy. The details, it did not say what the details of that policy would be. It's still a motion.
And I believe that's why we didn't second it, because there still needs more information before we second the motion. So if you're comfortable with that, which I hope you are.
I'm done with the discussion. It's typical.
Francine, just call for a second.
All right. Put your motion back on the floor again,
I
Julian.
made a motion that we create a policy that whenever town produces a project, that it be documented in a fashion that is consistent with planning board procedure.
I
Okay,
second the
perfect,
motion.
perfect, all right.
And now I make a motion to table that to further discussion and
I
research.
knew you would.
So that it becomes a warrant, not a warrant, but a town
An
ordinance.
okay.
And that we basically have this research by the planning board so that we are doing this correctly and that it can be long-lasting.
All right, may I have a second on that, please? I'll second it. All those in favor to table this to a future date, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
Opposed.
Okay, all right, any abstentions? All right, so does that mean there's 410 to table it to our January meeting? All right. Okay, so the cost for park is going to be approved out of the unassigned, the contingency fund. And now our next item agenda is the encumbrance overview. And hopefully, Greg, are you here with us? I don't see you on the screen, but hopefully you're here to answer some questions for us.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, all right, great. So before we get into the 2021 encumbrances, I just want to give everyone an overview of the 2020 encumbrances. As you may recall, our finance director, who has a CPA, presented a number of encumbrances to us last December, and I believe the board approved all of them except for one. Our elected town auditors reviewed these encumbrances and decided that there were two of them that they did not accept. One of them was for $7,249.99 to finish off a master plan for the planning board. That was determined not to be needed. I believe they tabled the update on the master plan, and so that money should be unencumbered and returned back to the general fund if it hasn't already been done. And then the second encumbrance was for $25,000 for a software system for our police department. We had been waiting on our state police to purchase equipment that our town could interface with. And so apparently the state police did purchase that over the course of the summer, which allowed our town of Plaistow to purchase it so that it could interface and go in tandem with the state police equipment. So that was done and hopefully paid for, and I believe it was paid for very recently. And so I just wanted to make sure that people knew that our finance director vets all of these encumbrances, and these encumbrances were also vetted by our independent auditors, Plotznick and Sanderson, as well. So they are the guiding light that we use to make decisions on whether these encumbrances are proper or not. And so with that, I'm going to turn over the 2021 encumbrances, sorry, I'm losing my voice, to Greg Colby. Can you just review this with us a little bit and just tell us kind of what we're looking at here?
Yes, absolutely. So in your packet tonight, there is a listing entitled the 2020 year-end items to encumber. With that, they total at this point $213,891.60. Item number one on here is the contract that was recently signed for Corcoran Associates for, it is utilizing the money that was approved at this past budget for the full values anew. So that is 45,000. The next three items pertain to the highway department. The first two items are drainage projects. We had 4 drainage projects on tap to do this year. 2 of them have been completed, but these 2 drainage projects need DES approval and permitting, and because of COVID, classes to complete a portion of that work were canceled or not offered by DES, so that the highway supervisor could not take part in those. So these 2 projects, we do have quotes and the like, which are attached, but those projects were not able to get done. So we're asking for carrying forward those 2. And then the third item is Continental Paving. We have money that is left over from the highway block grant for paving of town roads, which I believe it's Red Oak Drive that wasn't completed. It was only shimmed. There was a question to the budget committee that was answered that said the highway supervisor wanted to let the roadway sit for the winter and go through a frost freeze cycle. So we're asking to encumber this $45,000 of highway block grant revenue to the spring to be able to finish that work. The next 2 items are police department equipment for supplies and the like that have been ordered, but the manufacturer is having trouble securing all of the parts to finish the assembling of the equipment. So we have 2 items there. The warrant article that we had for the landfill cap and maintenance, again, unfortunately, because of COVID, some of the work was not able to be completed in time. So we're looking to carry over the remaining contract balance of $37,000. And then lastly, the contract that is in the hands of legal right now, but we expect it to be signed any day for the solar panels on the salt shed work of $63,966 is the final. All of the, except for this one for Revision Energy, all of the others contain documentation in your packet. So those items total the $213,891.60, and would be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
So Greg, the last one on the solar panels, I would assume that the answer to the RFP from Revision would constitute a legal binding agreement? Is that correct?
In my opinion, yes, because we can also issue a purchase order and the like. But, as we know, the contract is with legal right now, just finalizing it. So we expect that to be done, very soon. And we should have a signed contract before the end of the year would be my anticipation.
So from my understanding and from what I've read so far on all of these, there is a legal binding agreement, either contract or grant or whatever, that would basically authorize these encumbrance to occur. Is that also your agreement, also your understanding?
It is my understanding, yes, and that these are approved, we will go forward with, the issuing of, stronger documentation, if you will. These are, as I said, the police department has issued purchase orders to the company, so we have provided a commitment to them. Same thing on the excavation and Continental. We have had conversations with them and have committed, verbally or otherwise, to these projects.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay. And Greg, I guess I have kind of a strange question on the revision energy myself. That $63,000, was that not the leftover of the warrant article that we passed last year to do the solar panels? And if it is, which I'm expecting it is, do we need to encumber that if it's in a warrant article? I guess I'm not quite sure on how that works. Can you explain that?
The warrant article, I was reviewing the warrant article. The warrant article was not, set up to be a non-lapsing.
Non-lapsing,
So-
okay, that's why. Okay, you're right, I got that, okay.
So
All righty.
because it's not a non-lapsing, we have a signed contract to do the work, so that's why I'm asking for it.
Okay,
As
all right.
part of the list.
That makes total sense, all right. So a couple of things that I would like to ask, if you could, is this information available online per chance, or in electronic form? Because I'd like to ask if you could kindly forward copies of these encumbrances to both our elected town auditors for review, if you could do
I
that.
will be glad to.
Thank you so much. Okay, and then the other thing that I did want to let the board know is because it's so early in the year, it's not the end of the year yet, there may be more items to encumber before December 31st. So I'm going to ask the board to just review this paperwork over the next couple of weeks, and perhaps first meeting in January, we can vote to approve them, unless you guys want to do that on the 28th. That's up to you. But there may be more encumbrances coming down the road, so I just wanted to alert you on that. So we'll take a final vote on everything in January.
Quick question.
Sure.
Do encumbrances have to be done before December 31st?
No, they didn't. In my opinion, no, they do not.
Okay.
We can certainly vote on the ones that we have here. And hopefully, by the 28th, we should have a very good idea of whether there may be more. So I'm just, giving you guys a heads up that there possibly could be some more of these. All right. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate your explanations, and we'll review this stuff.
So would you entertain a motion to approve these?
Not yet. No, I want you to review them first, because some of them you might not want to approve.
That's what I just thought you said. You said if you want to approve these. That's why I asked the
Oh,
question.
I didn't remember saying that.
Okay.
All right. Sorry.
All right, no problem.
All right, yeah, review them,
Okay, great.
and then we can approve them on the 28th.
Good.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the trash cart proposal. And unfortunately, I apologize to you guys, the information that I sent you last week to review contained a couple of mistakes.
They were good deals.
It was, I know, that's why it was a mistake, unfortunately. So I gave you copies of the updated proposal, as well as the cost for it. And if you, as a board, approve the expenditure for this, it will have to be reviewed, the proposal will have to be reviewed by legal first. And we will need to also add 6 months' worth of payments onto our trash budget, for a total of $18,436.20. So I know it's a change, and I don't know if you want to vote to approve this right now, if you want to wait till next week to do it, but I will put that on the floor for consideration. Thoughts?
I'll put a motion to approve this proposal for $165,036.50.
All righty, thank you. May I have a second for that, please? Anyone? I'll second it to move the motion forward. Is there any further discussion on it?
Is this the total budget for trash?
No. The $165,000 is to purchase the 96-gallon carts. The trash carts, I don't know what you call them, trash bins, trash carts.
Yeah.
Well, that's only contingent upon we actually get a contract. We haven't signed any contracts yet.
No, it's a separate, completely different thing.
Well, if we don't sign a contract with the company yet, and then we have a bunch of trash barrels, and we don't sign the contract, then we have trash barrels we may not be able to use.
Well, you won't have any
Cart
trash,
before
you
the
won't
horse,
have
or
any
whatever
trash.
you wanna put
If
it.
you don't sign a trash contract, you won't have any trash
I
pickup.
just want to be clear.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
So Unless I'm mistaken, I got the impression that there was consensus that we should go with an automated trash removal process because it was a lot less money to our taxpayers.
Yes.
That's the impression that I got. So if that's the impression, then having carts that can be picked up by an automated truck is a necessary item, even if it doesn't matter who we go with, we still need this to be able to do it. So it kind of answers your question, yeah, I think this is something we need to have.
But do we
And
have?
We can decide separately who we want to have actually remove the trash.
Right, two separate
This allows us
things.
to be automated
Two
versus
separate
manual.
things.
But do these trash barrels include ARFIDs,
I'm sorry, include what?
the ID tags?
Yes, yes. If
I
you
don't want to
look,
have to add that. I just wasn't sure if the whole estimate was good.
Yeah, it's under the options, Julian. It says RFID tags. It's like 50 cents per barrel.
Okay, this is the fixed one, all right.
okay, they will assemble it, they'll distribute it, they'll GPS it, they'll do
Yeah.
everything, and we don't need to start paying for this until June.
And they emboss
And they emboss it with the town of Plaistow on it. Go ahead, Jay.
So my question to this is, we're looking at purchasing 3,150. If we're doing away with recycling, which a lot of people put out potentially multiple barrels, maybe a barrel of trash and multiple barrels of recycling, is this going to be enough for people that would want to purchase 2 barrels? And are there going to be some type of qualifications around, which houses get 1 barrel as opposed to 2 barrels if they have, 8 people living in the house or 6 bedrooms, for example? Is this going to be enough to accommodate those circumstances?
What I did was, there's 3,109 residential properties, currently. And I looked through the assessing roster a couple of weeks ago, and I came up with 3,120. So there's a 30-gallon kind of overage there. And so the board can make a decision as to how they want to distribute any second barrels. And my thinking is that the board may want to say, anyone with more than 6 people in a household can purchase a barrel at cost, and it'll be first come, first serve. And there's also mechanisms whereby we can add additional barrels onto this if we need to. So, but that's a board decision that you guys can make later on during the course of next year.
Where are the mechanisms to add on? I don't see it
It's
in.
not in the
RFP
proposal.
or
No,
proposal,
it's
whatever
not
this
in
is.
here. And the reason it isn't in here yet is because we don't know how many people are going to want extra barrels. And that also is a caveat to our RFP for trash assessing, because if you recall, during our first set of RFPs, they based their pricing on a certain number of trash barrels, and that's why they kind of forced us into, we're only going to pick up X amount of barrels for this price. So we're trying to, kind of work both ends to the middle there and try to contain not only the cost for our trash pickup, but also, the number of barrels that are being out there, because normally the vendors will only pick up 1 trash and 1 recycling. So go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, I'd like to see this contract say that, because we don't know how many we're going to need extra, that we can get the guaranteed price for any other ones that we order. Because I don't know if this $43.96 could go up to $60 suddenly because they want to charge more after the fact. I think if we're going to buy this many, we should be able to get a guaranteed price for additional if we require, so that we're protected in that fashion.
Do you have an idea of how long you want the price guaranteed for? Because
Well,
most
within-
companies will only,
Well, within the year, we'll know who needs them.
within next year?
Right. We'll know by that time who's going to want extras and who is not. If anyone after the fact, those are going to be new residents and new construction, more than likely, or they're doing dumpsters.
All right, so would you like me to have them add that into the proposal before I give it to
I'd like to
Sumner?
have that provision added to proposal so it protects us in the price range for any additional ones that we order. And I think Jay has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
How was this being paid for? Are we gonna purchase them within the money within this 2020 budget?
Yeah, if you look at the second page on the proposal, it's a 5-year lease to own, and so there's a monthly payment of a little over $3,000 for 5 years, and then at the end of the lease payment, you own them outright for $1. It's a $1 buyout. So there would be approximately $36,000 that would be added onto your trash component of your budget for 5 years for a lease. And then you'd own them outright, and then that would save you the cost on your next trash contract.
It would also, well, I don't know if Jay has another
Yeah,
additional
do-
thing.
Yeah, do you have, no, are you reading? Okay, all right.
Another thing
So-
is if you say a resident for a certain price gets another barrel or 2 barrels per barrel, does the town still own them, or is it just simply to purchase it and the town still owns them? Because let's say they move in 2 years, they don't take it
Town
with them?
owns them.
Well, that has to be somewhere in there. Well, this will be later,
Right,
later
right,
on.
right,
That if they,
exactly.
even though they purchase the additional barrels, the town still would own them,
Right, that's correct.
right?
But again, I will caution you that there's only going to be so many barrels that the trash company will pick up before they adjust your base rate, and that's what the key is. So,
So the number that we have picked here, is that the maximum that the previous contracts were bidding at?
yes, as a matter of fact, Casella did that. They said they would provide for that contract that they offered to us. They said they would pick up to 3,150 barrels. So they gave us that cushion of, 30, 40 barrels.
Okay.
But that's something for you to think about when we do open up the RFPs for the new trash contract bidding. That's what you have to think about. So if you decide you guys want to buy more barrels, it's going to cost you more on your base rate.
And it costs you more for the.
It's going to cost, yeah, so that's why I'm saying, be careful be judicious about what you're asking for, because you
And-
will wind up paying both ends to the middle. Go ahead,
And
Julian.
hopefully, I'm assuming that we're not limited just to the barrels. This quotes also included those facilities like condominiums, which they don't use individual bins, they use,
Well, that's
dumpsters.
separately on the RFP for the trash collector. Yep, that's
Okay.
already been done. And they already have the yardage amounts of each dumpster in each location, and also the town dumpsters too. So we gave them all of that in the
okay, so
RFP.
it considers that all into the play as well.
Yep, that's right, that's right. So, yeah, go ahead, Jay.
I'm just concerned this number's too low, the 3,150. I just think you're gonna have more residents out there that are gonna want a couple of barrels. And I guess it all depends on what the trash vendor comes back with as far
Right.
as what they'll pick up, but.
Yeah. Well, we can always increase it, but I will make sure you guys understand, these are 95-gallon containers. These are almost twice what you have right now. So that's another piece of it that you want to consider. So do you want to go forward with this contract contingent upon approval from some of the additions that Julian asked for and approval from town council?
Well, if we get the guaranteed price for a certain period of time, then if there's not enough of them, we're covered. If that provision's in there,
Right.
then Jay's concern, I think, is covered.
Right.
Because if we have, we
No,
can always order, if we get more at the same price,
So
but then we
we're-
have to have it budgeted too, so I see the concern there.
I just had a math mix-up, so I'm all set now.
You're all
Thank
set?
you.
Okay, so
Do we have to-
was there, wait a minute, I'm sorry, excuse me, 1 second. Was there a motion, first of all, I'm getting confused
There was
now.
a motion and
Was
a
there a
second.
motion? You put a motion on the floor, was there a second?
Yes, there was.
Yes, and we were
Okay.
discussing.
Okay, so we're still in discussion.
Yeah.
What else did you want to
And
say?
then my discussion is, if we do order more, how do we set that into the budget? Because we can't buy anything if it's not budgeted. So is that going to be, somehow, is there going to be a factor included in our future trash budget? Because we have to do that now, that allows us to purchase the extra. Well, I'm assuming maybe then they would get reimbursed by the individuals asking for them, I
Well,
suppose.
I guess my thought would be.
Still, it has to be budgeted, because it doesn't matter what comes in, it only matters what goes out.
Correct.
By our laws.
Correct, but I'm also, if you take a look at the price of the barrels, they're like less than $50.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker in the budget. I'm sure there's going to be some money found somewhere, even if we buy 1,000 more barrels. There's budget surplus in some departments somewhere, so.
Well, that's true. It
I'm
won't be
not,
a-
I'm not
it won't be a-
concerned about that.
It won't be a breaker.
Yeah,
You're right.
it won't be a deal breaker. So, go ahead, Greg.
So the key issue here is this 3150 does include a surplus of extra barrels.
Yes,
And it's within the proposed contract that we sent out the
in the
RFP
RFP,
for.
yes.
So that's really, I think, the real key thing is if we really do believe that we need to go to, let's say, 3,200 or 3,300, whatever, we're going to have to change the RFP.
Exactly.
Now, this is just a personal thing. I do a lot of traveling in the state, and a lot of communities that I've gone to, even ones that have recyclables and others that don't, their standard is 196-gallon barrel.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's not an unusual thing.
And like you say, the 96 barrels, a little bit larger than you think it is.
it's almost twice.
It's about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's double what most people put out are between 35 and 42 gallons.
Yep.
So you're talking about
Yes.
double.
And I'll say, if you, one that has a lot of, let's say, soda cans or something, if you crush those cans, they don't take up
Exactly.
space.
Right.
If
Exactly.
that's what you're concerned with, that it won't fit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's, instead of taking the whole box, put it in there like some people do,
Mm-hmm.
you just I always step on them and I put them in and they fit.
One
Yeah.
final thing I would like to comment, in that this takes care of our trash removal, and if sometime in the future, we find a vendor that will pick up our recyclables and we decide to go to recyclables, we can get a smaller barrel. We could go to a 64-gallon barrel for the recyclables, or we could go to another 96-gallon.
Yep.
So
Or
it
you
doesn't
could switch 'em.
preclude us from doing anything. It
Right.
just allows us, right now, we're looking at trash only because of the cost of recyclable and because of the low participation. If those two values change, if we all of a sudden start getting a lot of people who start recycling, then we can go off and open this contract up. It's going to cost the company, it's going to cost the town more money, but we could do that.
You can do it, absolutely.
We could do that.
And don't forget, you could flip barrels. You could use a 65-gallon for trash and the 96 for recycling, which may make more sense.
Yep.
So there's a lot of flexibility within this, but we're doing this within the confines of what our parameters are right now. John, do you have any comments about anything on this? Are you
No.
good to go? All right, one more question, one more comment,
One more
Julie, and we're going to
let's
vote.
comment. I guess, we do have two RFPs out. We have one for the regular trash, and we have one for any company that wants to just do recycle
Right.
at the residence
Subscription
cost.
Right,
And if, to get a group deal.
Right.
If someone really wants to do it.
right. Go ahead, Jay.
Did you reach out to other companies?
I have called, I'm going to tell you that I have called 6 recycling companies.
No, I'm talking about for the carts.
I did. There was a second vendor, and he finally pulled out, because if you recall, we have done this 4 or 5 different times with different quality, different parameters and different conditions and this and that, and he said he's done. So this is our one and only that's left. So if there's no more further questions, I'm going to call for a vote on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, Jay's going to abstain, so the motion carries 401.
And then later on, we'll pick the colors or whatever.
Yeah, you can do that next year. Yeah, okay. Pink.
You have to consider that if we go recycle, the recycle has to be different so that it's
Or
recognizable.
you could just do the bin, the
Top
the
covers, right.
lids
I
can
saw, I
be
was
different.
looking, if
Yep.
you look in Atkinson.
Yep, that's exactly right,
They're the
exactly.
closest ones to go look at.
Yeah, and those are actually nice like that, too, where
Yeah.
the lids are different, but the barrels look the same. Okay, so this is not on our agenda, and I forgot to put it on there, so that's my fault, but there are warrants. We had 6 warrants that were tabled from last meeting. We've managed to get some more information on all of them except for 2. So if we could just finalize those warrants tonight, then we will only have 2 left to go. And that first one was the operating budget. We don't have any information on that yet. But on the article on page 4, salt shed solar panel, we got some actually wonderful news from Revision Energy. Apparently, we did not need as much money as we thought we were going to need to put the second phase on. We do have an RFP for about $46,000. And so we reduced our appropriations down to $55,000. And so we are only taking $15,000 out of the general fund unassigned fund balance. And that gives us a little bit of a $5,000 cushion in case there's any electrical connections or anything that we may need to put on that roof. So, John, do you want to read that? It's Article P2106, number 4, and have us approve that if possible?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Article P21-06, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $55,000 needed to fund the Phase 2 of the Salt Shed Solar Project? The funds will be withdrawn from the general fund, unassigned fund balance, and the Energy Capital Reserve funds previously established. Total
Okay.
appropriation, $55,000, withdrawn from the general unassigned fund balance, $15,000, withdrawn from Energy Capital Reserve Fund, $40,000.
Okay, and I'm just going to interrupt you. I misspoke. The cost to do the second phase is $49,512. So we added $5,000 to cover extra expenses. So is there any discussion on that warrant article before we vote on it? No? Okay, so all those in,
Make a motion to
make a motion to approve?
the Salt Shed Solar Panel
Okay,
Project Phase 2, P2106.
okay, may I have a second?
Motion.
Okay, Greg, thank you. Okay, so all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, that motion will carry 500.
When are we going to get the current balances added to these?
I believe, well, Greg, if you're listening, you can kind of just verify this, but I believe you're going to wait until the end of the year to get the current balances and the unassigned fund balance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
So once we get to a meeting in January, these numbers will be filled in? Thank you.
Absolutely, yep, they should be. Okay, so the next item, warrant article that we tabled was the P2107, the 24-hour coverage for EMTs. I believe the Budget Committee did recommend that we put that to warrant as opposed to leaving it in the budget. And I received some wonderful news from Chief Knudsen last week. He indicated to me that he didn't need $171,000. He thought he could get by on $134,000. So we adjusted the price to that. And Jay, you had a comment. Go ahead.
I was just curious, I did watch the budget meeting, and I saw that they agreed to go forward with the warrant article, but are they going to be reducing their budget, or are we going to be making another motion here tonight, and then they'll do that tomorrow night?
We have a new budget.
Yeah,
fire.
yeah, yeah. So we already kind of know their intent. So if we put this warrant article and vote on it, we should reduce our budget line item, and they will correspondingly reduce theirs as well. So, Jay, could you take a turn to read that if you don't mind, if you're good with that, please?
All right, I have a version from November. I don't have the
Oh,
one
all right.
printed out from today, so.
All right.
24-hour coverage for EMTs, firefighters, and hazard response personnel. Article P2107, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $134,000 to be added to the fire department annual budget to fund 24/7, 365-hour coverage for calls of service for pre-hospital emergency medical care, fire suppression and rescue services. This amount will be included in the operating budget starting in 2021. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $134,000.
Okay, so may I have a motion on the floor to accept, please, or to approve?
Make a motion that we accept P2107.
And
I'll second it.
Julian, you seconded it? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, so that motion will carry 500 again. The next tabled one was for the landfill, and we do not have any financials on that yet and are not likely to have it until the first part of January. So we're going to table that one. And the next one, we had discussed, I believe, at our last meeting about combining,
Excuse me,
yeah.
before we move from the fire coverage, we want to approve this now so we don't forget?
Well, there's one more budget item that we need to approve, which was the addition on the trash.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, can we finish the
Sure.
warrants, and then we'll go back to that? Just remind me, okay? All right, so we combined, I believe, P21, 12, and 13. We had two separate warrants that asked to be agents for the fund and asked to put money into the scuba fund. And I believe Greg Talon contacted NHMA, and they said that we were able to combine both of those warrants together, so it would make our lives a lot easier. So we just kind of combined the agents for the fund and the withdrawal of the general fund. So, Greg, do you mind reading that one, please?
Sure.
Oh, I see you, Greg Colby, finally. Hi.
Didn't we already vote on this one? I'm a little bit
No,
confused.
this was two different ones, and you
Yeah.
combined it. So
Okay.
the language needs
All
to
right,
be redone.
Article P21-12, shall the town, transfer to capital reserve fund self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA. Article P21-12, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $22,122 to be deposited into the existing fire department SCBA capital reserve fund. The funds will be withdrawn from the general fund unassigned fund balance. Furthermore, name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from the fire department SCBA capital reserve fund. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $22,122. Withdraw from the general fund unassigned fund balance, $22,122. No amount to be raised by new taxation.
Okay, so that was basically a language change, so could I have a motion to approve that,
The
please?
motion to approve P2112.
All right,
Second the motion.
okay, thank you, Greg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, that motion carries 500.
Do we have any news on the cap, since we just skipped that
No,
one?
no, we will not be getting financials on that till the first part of January.
Okay.
So that's why we tabled that too. Same thing with the
it's
budget.
tabled again.
Yep,
Right.
tabled again. We're not going to get it till January.
Okay.
Okay, so next one that we need to vote on is discontinue, and there's a typo in there. Greg, I just noticed, discontinue acquisition of land and or building capital reserve fund.
Yep, I got it.
John, would you mind reading that one? It's P2116. It's on page 7,
Oh, okay.
I think, if you have the,
It's on 7.
yeah.
Discontinue acquisition of land and/or buildings, capital reserve fund. Article P21-16, shall the town vote to discontinue the acquisition of land and/or buildings, capital reserve fund pursuant to RSA 16-A, to transfer said funds with accumulated interest into the town's general fund, unassigned fund balance. Majority vote required.
Okay, so just a little bit of background on this particular one. I did some research. Warrant was created in 2011 by warrant article P1911. There was no money put into it until 2017, I believe, and there was approximately $100,000 put in there. And there has been really no activity in that fund. And it's not likely that we're going to be able to purchase anything for that amount of money anyway. And I believe Greg's explanation of our $21 million plus town-owned property kind of lets us put this money to, I guess, more appropriate use in the unassigned fund balance, because it's not just, being held in a capital reserve fund,
I
so,
think there was only one attempt to spend it once.
Yeah,
And it was to buy the
yeah.
land behind the police station.
Yeah.
Had we had enough money in there, that would now be town property, but now instead, there's a beautiful home there.
yep,
And and it was all taken care of, there's a big fence put there for privacy of the police department, and it all came out in for the good.
it did, it did.
I'll make a
Turned out well.
motion that we approve Article P 21-16.
All right, may I have a second on that, please?
I second a motion.
Thank you, John. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, that motion carries 500. Julian, could you read the next on the aggregation of electric customers?
Aggregation of electric customers. Article P 2117. Shall the town vote to authorize community power pursuant to RSA 53-E, authorize the select board to develop and send the Plaistow electric aggregation plan to notice the Public Utilities Commission pursuant to RSA 53-E, and direct the select board to proceed with taking any action or to pass any other vote to otherwise implement a Plaistow electric aggregation plan, beginning with securing a qualified partner entity to deliver on the goals and guidances set out in the electric aggregation plan, effective May 1st, 2021. Majority vote required.
Thank you. And that was basically what we were talking about earlier during our agenda. And it looks like it can be a really wonderful thing for the whole town. Does anybody have any comments regarding that before we put a motion on the floor? Go ahead, Jay.
So this aggregation, will this allow residents to be able to purchase electricity from other vendors at a cheaper rate? Or, so like I have Unitil right now, if the town has these electrical aggregations that I can join, and it's not Unitil, it's some other company, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Julian.
in overall, it basically allows the town, and in this case, the intention may be an entire region to negotiate a lower rate for electricity, and then, and pass that on to all the residents and businesses within our town. Now, if someone else gets a better deal somewhere else, they're, at any time, can opt out and get the better deal. It doesn't prevent anybody from getting a better electric rate.
Exactly. Go ahead, Greg.
So can I ask a question, maybe to Julian? If we have Unitel and we negotiate through this plan with another company, to my understanding, we're buying power, but Unitel still services us?
Yes, what happens is two
we
things on
don't-
your bill.
Yeah,
There's
a bill.
electric,
Same lines.
kilowatts, and there's delivery charge. Delivery charge would still be Unitil because they own the lines, they own the poles.
Got it.
Yep, good explanation. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, can I have a
Make
motion?
a motion that we pass Article P 21-17.
All right, Matt, second for Jay, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Okay, thank you. Okay, last one, establish a heritage commission. And that was also part of our agenda item for tonight.
And we're going to remove 44B, which is
And
on
we're
the
going to remove
second line.
44B, right? Okay.
B
Yeah.
or D?
44B. as
E,
in-
yeah, I thought it was DJ, but I was mistaken.
Yeah,
So who's going to read that? Greg, you
I
want to
can
do
read
that?
it, sure. Establish a Heritage Commission, Article P 21-18. Shall the town vote to establish a Heritage Commission in accordance with the provisions of RSA 673 and RSA 674:44-A, 44-D, and 44-C, if applicable. And to further authorize the Board of Selectmen to appoint 5 citizens as members of the Heritage Commission pursuant to the provisions of RSA 673:4-A and RSA 673:5, and to appoint up to 5 additional citizens as alternate members or take any other action related thereof. Majority rule required.
Okay. All right, so is there any further discussion on this? Go ahead,
So I
Greg.
have my primary question, and Jim, I think, mentioned it during his presentation. Could we change this verbiage to say up to 5 citizens? Because we could actually do this with 3. I'm not sure if it's going to take a while to get 5 citizens interested in
It
this.
does say, and to appoint up to 5 additional citizens. All right, and you want to, okay.
Those are the alternate members.
Okay, all right. I see no reason why not. Go ahead, Jay, sorry.
Does this number take into consideration like a liaison from the Board of Selectmen, or is that above and beyond the 5?
No, it's part of,
It's
part
part of,
of the
it's part of the commission. I think they require a select board member and 1 planning board member as a requirement, yeah.
I would rather see it just say the number instead of playing in future, just playing the game, it'll be 3, 5, 4, leave it at 5.
No, he's saying up to 5,
Well,
so in
up to
case you
5, but
can't
then
get
leave,
them.
but then you're going to get 5. I mean, if you just look around, the people on
so you don't think we'll have
historical society alone that are residents would join it.
you don't think we'll have any problem finding 5 members?
I don't think you'll have a problem finding 5
No,
members.
Okay.
all right.
They're
all right.
already, look at the signatures that they already have. Those people are actively, are concerned.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want this.
Yeah, that's a good
Out
point.
of all those people, you'll get
Good
5.
point.
I'll pull back my request
Okay,
for an
all
edit.
righty. So we'll leave it as written. All right, so can I have a
Motion to
motion?
approve P2118.
All right, thank you, Jay. Can I have a second?
Second the motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm going to abstain because I'm still on the fence over my concern.
Me too, Julie, and me too.
I don't want to put a blocker by saying no. I'm still on the fence of the concern I have, so I have to think about this further. So I'm
Yeah,
going to
I
abstain.
agree. I'm abstaining as well, so that motion still carries 3-0-2. All right, so we're done with the warrant articles, you guys. Thank you so much.
We have a slated time that we would be able to revote on these.
Yeah, actually, before we do that, can I get back to Julian's request about the budget? Because we do have to readjust those 2 numbers, and I know,
And they need this for tomorrow's meeting.
yes, yeah, he needs that for tomorrow. So, so Greg, you were kind enough to readjust our fire budget down to 784,285. I'm going to ask the board if they would consider increasing the solid waste collection by $18,437 to accommodate our trash lease for the trash buckets.
Which line item?
It's a line item, yep. So the total on that would be $789,437. So may I have a motion to approve that adjustment in that
Make
budget?
that motion.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I'll abstain.
Abstain, okay, so that motion carries 401. So Greg Colby, I believe the bottom line total on that is $9,881,315, but I always screw that up, so I'm going to have you double check me.
For the trash.
I will do that tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much. We very much appreciate you jumping on board with this. All right, so I'm sorry, Greg, let's get back to your,
Okay, so I'm a little, we did a line item for the trash.
Yep.
Do we have to approve the change in the fire?
we should, yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. All right, so could you put a motion on the floor for that?
Sure. Which line item is it?
I'll
It
make a
is
motion.
fire, and it's here. I can put it. It's right there.
Okay, so I make a motion that we adjust the fire department budget to $784,285.
All right, you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll have Jay second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, so I believe that motion carries 500, and I believe the total still stands at what I gave you, Greg, but double check me. Okay?
I will do that.
reduced.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
It was
thank you.
reduced by the 134,000.
Right, okay. All right, so our next item agenda is the town manager's report, and I'm sure he's been waiting patiently to do that.
Before we do that,
Before you do that,
should we also make a quick brief comment about SOROC, since we finished the warrant discussion?
oh, sure. Well, yes, I believe Jay provided to the board some additional information on SOROC, and I did put an email out to Lori Sadowitz requesting her opinion on whether that should be added into our warrants. And I believe I forwarded her answer to you guys, and I know it was kind of late. It was this afternoon that I did, and I don't know if you guys all received her email, but she declined to have an opinion on it because she said usually it is brought to warrant for the people to approve, and she has not had any opportunity to work with these people.
So do we have the requested financials? that
We
have?
still do not have requested financials. We have some direct impact, and I know they gave us a list of stuff.
I believe what they did last year was it was $1 per resident, so.
Yes,
I mean, their financials.
Oh, their financials?
yes, like,
They never provided that?
Yeah, each
no,
service
no.
has to provide their financials.
Oh, okay.
It's like, if you go to any charitable organization, they go, how much you use for admin, how much you use actually goes to the cause, or whatever you want to call it. And I guess that's what we're
To my
talking about.
understanding, they are not a charitable organization.
No, they're not registered with the New Hampshire Charitable Trust Division because I checked.
Okay.
So,
Quick
I think this is sort of our third go-around with discussing this, so I would like to have a motion on the floor to restrict reconsideration of this unless we get financials from them. So could I have that motion on the floor, please?
All right, so I'm a,
You're gonna
point of
so
order, I
move me?
just get I'm a little bit confused. So we do not have a warrant for SOROC. It's-
Right.
It's off, it's not on the
Dead issue.
warrant right now. So there's nothing to reconsider because we don't have a warrant article.
Well, we're restricting
Basically asking is
consideration.
we can just simply table this until we see financials from them, so that we're treating them the same way that we would treat any other charitable service organization that's providing services to Plaistow. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do, but I guess my point is this is our third request for financials, and we have not been provided financials. So how many times do you want to go down that road, is what I'm asking, I guess. Do you want to restrict reconsideration until you get financials and
You've
then
asked,
consider?
They haven't answered. They gave you a data sheet with
Yep.
some other information. We don't, if you guys think we can move forward with a warrant article, then we can, but if not, then let's move on.
Just move on.
All right, so
That's
just
all.
move on?
It's just new information.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
All right.
I just
Okay.
wonder why originally it wasn't sent to the entire board, it was sent to one board member? Or did I misinterpret the way the email stream went?
So it was sent to Lori Sadowitz, and myself and Max Dobson were CC'd on the original email.
Really?
Okay.
I forwarded you guys the original email.
Yeah, thank
so
you for doing that,
that's-
yeah.
That's why I was
That's why
concerned.
it
Why
would-
did it only
went
go
to
to
me.
you?
Yeah, that was a little strange.
I don't have any issue whatsoever with SOROC
Yeah.
if they're providing services to the town, as long as they are complying with the same process that we expect every other service organization to provide. And
Agreed.
that's just being fair.
Agreed. All right, well, thank you for putting it so nicely and in crystal clear perspective. All right, so if there's no other further discussion on that, Mark, would you be kind enough to give us your town report, please?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing is the public safety road construction is essentially complete at this point in time, with the exception of the paving, which we did not intend on doing this year. We intended to do it in the spring. What happened in the course of them doing the road, and I reported to the board earlier, is that Busby contacted the Palmers and arranged privately for the Palmers to pay Busby while they were doing this construction to install an 8-inch water line, so that up to the property line at no expense to the town, at the Palmer's expense. And so that when the road is paved, there'll be no need to dig up the road in the future. So in the springtime, we will get as many quotes as we can, or estimates, to pave the road with the binder and the finish coat, and that project will be complete. There is a report in your, there's a report in your folder tonight that's a preliminary field report on the roadway construction, and actually shows you pictures as it is right now. So if you have time to look through that either now or later,
Color
you'll see
pictures, too. Nice.
essentially that project looks like. The next item is the Public Works Garage Generator. Last Friday, actually it was a week ago, let's see, last Friday. It was a week ago Friday, the generator, a 60 kW natural gas emergency generator was installed, or at least placed on the outside cement unit. The electrical connections were installed along with the transfer switch, and this Thursday, Unitel is going to come and install a larger meter that will allow for the flow of the necessary natural gas to accommodate the distribution. So we anticipate that the generator will be online this Thursday with Unitel and the plumber and the electrician doing the startup. So that project will essentially be complete this week. That is related to the next line item, which is the vaccine distribution in Plaistow. And there is another handout in your folder that I downloaded and had Beth put in your folder about who's in line for the COVID-19 vaccine in New Hampshire. As you know, the vaccine arrived in New Hampshire today. I can tell you that it's public news in the newspaper that the governor appointed the former director of Homeland Emergency Management, Perry Plummer, to be the logistical person to make sure that the distribution goes off without a hitch. We do not have any new information, but we are ready, and we are a designated site in the Southeast Regional Public Health Network. So there's been some changes in the numbers. I had previously told you that it was going to peak probably in, we're going to see some numbers by December 20th. It's actually peaked sooner, and expect now is to see a rise continue through December, January, and February. But the vaccine is here, and hopefully that will start to make a difference. The next item I have is related to that is Plaistow needs to start thinking about a possible shutdown. We could go back to what we did at the beginning of the coronavirus. We're going to be taking this day by day. As you know, we have a lot of one-person departments, so if somebody goes out from that one-person department with COVID, or it has to go out because they've been exposed, we essentially lose that department. Right now, we have a total of 5 full-time employees out with either COVID or because of the required quarantine and testing before they can come back. 5 to 7 people are out daily. New people experiencing symptoms every day. That's roughly 15% of our full-time workforce. I'm just letting you know that this is the beginning of seeing this happen to our employees. We could see 25%. We could see some higher numbers of people being out of work. So I haven't made any decisions, but it's going to be a day-by-day decision-making we're going to have to do depending on which employees go out and so forth. The next I have is a salt shed update. You also have pictures in your folder tonight, color pictures.
I know.
As you know, the salt shed, is somebody asking a question?
Nope.
Okay.
Just love the
salt
pictures,
shed
they're
has
beautiful.
418 tons of salt in it. We've ordered more. And you can look at your pictures today. It's under construction with the installation of the plywood on the walls above the concrete. You can see the salt in there. You can see the construction lumber, and you can see the plywood on the walls. So they're doing that while the salt's in the shed, not a problem. And we're just moving along with this project. We're not going to let any construction slow down the project. The EPA stormwater permit update, we received notification about the 2017 stormwater permit, which is what we're operating under. Plaistow's one of 46 towns in New Hampshire that's regulated by that, and I distributed that to our planning, building, code, planning board, and our consultant engineers. And we're just going to make sure that everybody knows what the requirements are. They do apply to municipal projects as well as private construction projects. The reason for the salt shed was to help us comply with the MS4 requirements for salt. So we're working to get off of that site, as you know, also with our highway garage. So, you know, we're working on complying with the permit, stormwater permit. I'll skip the next one because that really was already talked about the COVID. The COVID is at our police station, and they're the one department that's affected the most at this point. We do have some backup plans in case operations, dispatcher, administration gets shut down. So we are working on contingency plans because that's not a department you can just shut down. The Budget Committee questions and research. So the Finance Director, Human Resources, and myself and Dee, we answer questions. We put it into a memorandum. So to date, we've received some more questions today. We responded today. So we're answering questions as soon as the Budget Committee gives them to us. We received the latest questions on Friday, but we did get to them today and returned them to the Budget Committee today. So we'll attempt to keep on answering those questions as soon as we can. Cable equipment has been ordered for the Public Works Garage. Some of it may be on back order, but essentially Dean is going to make it happen for the deliberative session regardless, even if he has to move some of our town hall equipment or library equipment over to that room. So that will happen over there. The water project, DeFelice is still down on Wentworth Ave. You may or may not know that they ran into a lot of drainage pipe, old ancient pipe that when they were working with water pipes, the drainage pipe started collapsing and the road started collapsing in a couple of different areas because of some heavy rains. We asked the state if that would be covered under their grant. It took us several days. They did respond back in the affirmative, and so they actually paid for the installation and the cost of several hundred feet of drainage pipe that was needed to be done on Wentworth. We traded off covering the police details for those days related to the drainage from the outside detail fund. So we continue to collaborate with Underwood and Unitel about the road reconstruction on Wentworth Ave. Our goal now is with the reconstruction of the drainage and the installation of the water pipe and the future installation of the Unitel gas main. What we want to have for finished product is that the whole road be reconstructed because we don't see a need to dig it up in the future, and that's a heavily traveled road. What we didn't want to have is a bunch of patches in the road, because we'd actually have three different types of patches, one for drainage, one for water, and one for gas. So we are collaborating. We think we're going to be able to strike a deal to work with Unitel and DeFelice to get that road completely redone next year. Water tank update, it's winterized, it's backfilled and winterized. That means that there's some water in it, and there's the amount of fill outside the tank will not let it freeze inside the tank. And they're continuing to work on the utility water valve building, and they're working on the interior and electrical fit up that's going on. And of course, that project will be complete in the spring. As you know, the water contract operator RFP has been out there, and we have 5 qualified licensed water companies and operators that have responded. So we had DES review our RFP, and we have sent it to the 5 qualified companies, and we expect the results back to the town in January 2021. And then I will bring it before the board in your capacity as water commissioners and the Board of Selectmen. East Road Pump House and East Road Waterline Construction. So when they finish up with all the plans and they approve set of plans and they go out to bid for the East Road Pump House, then that contract will be awarded, and we suspect that construction will start in the spring. And you may or may not know, with the fact that East Road is a state road, they do not allow construction after a certain period of time. We're already in that time frame. So East Road will not be dug up for the water line construction until the spring. Let's see. So the water, the highway department truck replacement dump body, you have pictures in your folder, and if you want to look at those for a second. So that truck is a 2010 that has been essentially restored to a working capacity to last another 10 years. We may have to replace some rims on the truck because the rims are 10 years old and they're rusting. Greg and I and the highway department are working on getting some prices. We're going to try to accomplish that this year. But essentially, that truck looks just as good as the other new truck that's more of a 2016 vintage. So this truck here this work is going to allow this truck to last another 10 years. And this replacement schedule on this one truck has saved the town over $400,000 by investing in the repairs in year 10 to make the truck last for 20 years. So with that, I'd be happy. Oh, there's one more thing in your package. It's a landfill RFP addendum. As a result of a pre-proposal meeting on, I believe it was December 1st, sometimes questions come up and we put out addendums to the RFP to all the interested parties, and we're waiting for those results to come back. I think it's the beginning of January. And then we'll have a number to plug in after the board reviews that for that warrant article. So we got a lot of things going on, a lot of projects still going on, but I'm here to answer any questions if the board has any.
All right, any questions, you guys, for Mark? No, I don't see any. Thank you so much. All right, so next item agenda is action item review. We're getting down to the nitty gritty, and I guess I wanted to ask the board about the maintenance contract for LED lighting. Is that something that you would like me to ask Dee to approach Affinity to help give us a hand with that, or how would you guys like to handle that?
This is for the LEDs.
For maintenance contract, because eventually we're going to need a maintenance contract to, because we own the lights and Unitil isn't going to repair them if they're messed up. So how would you guys like to approach that?
I'd like to see some numbers. I don't think it's a urgency at this point. They're brand new and they're still under warranty, so we don't have to worry about it right now. But
All
if
right.
we're trying to get a heads up on what those contracts would look like in the future, we should probably begin to reach out to Affinity to see what they would offer.
Okay.
Should we push that date out then?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you want to move the date out, Julian?
Oh, definitely.
All right, what, till next year, 12/30/2021?
Actually, I'm not sure what the warranty period is. I can't recall exactly
It's
how long.
5 years.
Is it 5 years?
I think so, yeah.
Before end of next year.
Okay.
We can, if it's still too soon, we can move it out at that time.
All right, so you want to do 12/30/2021?
Yeah, but we
All
can
right.
still put the question out there.
All right.
What are the options we have so we can start to think about it?
All right. Would you like me to reach out to Ms. Voss and have her interface with Affinity? Because they said they have a lot of experience in doing these
Well, I
maintenance
would do that, but
contracts.
it's not my
Or
decision,
you
it's
do
the
it?
board decision.
No, but I'm saying I would ask her to research it and bring it back to you guys unless somebody else would like to do that.
I would like you to reach out.
Me? Okay. All right, I can do that. We can do that in the next few months or so. And then the other thing that we need to take a look at is how are you working out with Chief Knudsen and the house numbers? Are we getting any more forward on that, or is there any progress on
I
that?
got a lot of information, but I dropped it for the moment because it wasn't an urgency with everything else
Okay.
going on.
All right,
And when there's more room in the schedule, and I know it's kind of his duties are rather hectic right now,
All right,
so I didn't want to push it. But he did provide me some good information,
okay.
just a matter of putting it together, good ideas.
So would you like to move a date to like maybe July of next year for that?
I wouldn't even go out that far.
No? Well, what would you think? What do you think?
I'd say April,
April? Okay.
and probably get it done before then, but
All right, great. All right, and all the rest of the stuff has to wait, so I think we're really well caught up on our action items list, so thank you for doing that, guys. I don't believe any of us have been going to any committee meetings. I know the planning board has canceled theirs, and you have budget committee meetings. You want to report on any of your budget committee meetings, Julian, or?
well, last meeting, no line items have changed on anything. So there's not much to report there.
Okay,
Was anything
The only thing
approved?
that really occurred last meeting was, there were members of the budget committee that were on remote. They were members of the budget committee that were on remote, and the law required me to do roll call vote. I did remind the chairman of that, but it was continued on without roll call vote. Since then, I've then sent out the actual, the RSA and the guidance from the Attorney General of any exceptions to that rule, which all it did was relax the requirement that the number of people that had to be physically present is the only part that's really relaxed. Otherwise, the guidance, remote meetings has
Basically
always
the same.
been the same, roll call
Right,
vote.
right.
If one member is remote, you have to have roll call vote. Because the thing is, you can't tell what the other person's voting as far as the public is concerned, because it's not just the chairman or the members that need to know who voted. The public has to be able to know who voted. And you really can't do that when you say, everybody say aye. It makes it tough. So that's why the law is written that way. It's to ensure the right to know is adhered to by its principle.
And it doesn't matter if they were approving or taking budgets under consideration, they were still voting.
They're
So
still
they still
voting.
needed to do the roll call vote.
exactly, yes.
A vote is a vote.
Yes, and so on behalf of the board, I want to thank you as our liaison for calling that to their attention, and hopefully, the law will be followed in the future, because everybody makes mistakes.
Well, there's no backtracking fortunately involved, since there were no actual changes. That makes it easier. And actually, I don't know why they always do the consideration, because a vote is a vote. If you want to change it, you can re-vote it. So I don't ever understood the consideration, almost adds another step, because then you got to vote it again afterwards.
Yeah.
That's why, I never understood that part, but that's how they're doing it.
Yep, all right, that's
You can
their
vote on it
choice.
and change
is
it
their
afterwards,
choice.
so what's the difference?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
So Julian, is there any
know, get-
changes to any numbers at all?
I don't recall them changing any numbers
Okay, thank you.
at that point. I don't think they voted on the fire because they knew there were going to be changes. But still, since there was no actual vote, it's really not relevant. So it doesn't affect anything. They will have to look at the new fire thing that's will be provided to them tomorrow. So we'll see how tomorrow goes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all right, Jay, did you have something to say?
I had a rec commission meeting, we met virtually.
Oh, okay,
So we've been meeting on Zoom. We discussed, not discussed, updated the strategic plan. There was a lot of items on there that had been completed over the
Yeah,
last year. So
I
we were
know.
able to complete that and look at the remaining items and, discuss possible dates and timeframes for those. The rec commission, rec department's been pretty busy. Jen has gone over, the Vic area is now closed, but there were a couple weeks where they were open. And she was going over and doing like bingo with a few seniors that had come in.
that's really nice.
Unfortunately, that was shut down just after 2 weeks. She also held 2 wreath-making classes with small groups of people. In the past, it's been held at like a Pollard school with 35, 40 people.
yep.
And it's been a very successful event. Obviously, with COVID, they had to change that, so she was able to pivot and do a smaller session. They had the virtual tree lighting outside. Dean recorded that. They had the fire department show up. There was the Girl Scouts saying some Christmas carols, and that's on TV for anyone who wishes to watch that. There's also some other events going on. I think today she put together a map of Show Us Your Lights, so everyone in town was able to sign up, and there's a map available where you can drive around town and look at everyone's Christmas lights. And there might be one more. And then there's just a couple other events going on that you can go onto the recreation page. So she is pretty busy with keeping some of these things going through the winter, so.
Yeah, Jen is amazingly creative. She's
Yes.
done a lot of really wonderful projects for this town that we sorely need in this COVID world, so she does a great job. I'm glad she's,
And the
she's
virtual bingo she's
yeah.
been doing has really kicked off too. So that was a little slow at first, but now she's getting a lot of people calling
Really
in
cool.
on Thursday, and they're doing virtual bingo, so.
Excellent,
She's coming
excellent.
up with a lot of good things. So.
She sure does, yeah. Any other business that we need to conduct tonight, gentlemen? All right, our next meeting is scheduled for next Monday, and so if there's no more business to conduct, go ahead, Greg.
Question to
Yep, sure.
Greg. Greg, has the generic Plaistow email accounts been given out yet?
No, they have not.
Okay. Do I need to do anything to help that, or are you going to handle that, or what?
I will follow up with, SE in the morning.
Okay. And I think it was what, you said there was like there's 4 of them right now? They're all mostly the chair positions?
I want to say there's at least 3. I know there's a BudCom chair, a planning board chair. So I'll follow up and get you an answer though in the morning.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
All right, so
You're
no more
welcome.
further business, gentlemen? All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 8:44 PM. Good night, everyone. And Greg, can you not go offline for a second? I just have a quick question.